Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mommy Podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dinning, and today we're getting into the other part of my last episode. So the last episode I talked about cesarean birth, good to knows, must knows, things that I didn't know. And in this episode, we are talking about the other way to give birth, which is a vaginal birth. And I am talking about this specifically because my second daughter was a drug-free vaginal birth, and I essentially had a VBAC, so a vaginal birth after cesarean, and everything went better than I could have expected. And I wanted to jump on here and share my experience, which was a totally different experience, but also a totally different recovery after the fact of getting home, the different changes with my body, different things that I noticed, and mainly things that I learned. So to jump right into it, the CDC, National Center for Health Statistics, in 2021 said that there were 2.5 million vaginal births in the United States. And if you listen to my last episode, that is a significantly higher number than the cesarean birth number, and more commonly known as the normal way to give birth, which really ticked me off, honestly, having a cesarean birth the first time. And people went, "Oh, you didn't give birth naturally." And I don't know why that bugs me so much. But if you've had a cesarean birth, maybe you understand. If not, don't worry about it. It's a weird thing. So anyways, I got my natural birth and was part of that larger statistic. And I wanted to talk about the beginning of kind of what the differences were. So back in the last episode, I mentioned when I went in for my cesarean, it felt very much like an appointment. I kind of had everything planned out. You know, I took a shower, I did my hair, I packed my bags. I knew exactly what was happening when it was happening, as it was a scheduled cesarean. Now, this time, it was very different. So just a little bit of background on the vaginal birth experience for me. I won't get into too many details. However, I never really experienced period cramps before. I never had period cramps. So I thought that I was having just abdominal cramps. They ended up being my contractions. I luckily had my mom in town, and she said, "You better start counting these cramps because they're probably contractions." And anyways, within a few hours, I ended up getting to the point where I was in a lot of pain, not moving very quickly, and to the hospital. 2 hours later, my little girl was born. And now there are some things that I wanted to share because I did a ton of research on the vaginal birth method, on what can I expect, what are certain positions that can help me birth properly, help me birth healthily, and, you know, what are the benefits of an epidural? What are the benefits of not taking an epidural? What is the aftermath going to be like? That type of thing. So to go through my own personal experience, because that's really all I can share on this. So to go back, we got to the hospital and I was very strong. You know, at this point I was thinking to myself, I don't want to have an epidural. I don't want any drugs. I'm going to do this totally naturally, until I started feeling that pain. And it was honestly, it was to the point of like, give me anything. This is horrible. I have never experienced this kind of pain. I don't even know where it's coming from. It's like my entire body. And anyways, by the time we got to the hospital, I was checked in, and the first nurse scared the heck out of me because she came in and goes, yeah, she's 0. And essentially 0 centimeters. Like, I hadn't dilated at all. And I remember thinking in my head when I heard that, I think I'm going to die today. Like, if this is the amount of pain I'm feeling at 0, holy, like, give me everything you have. So then another woman comes in, checks me out, and goes, actually, no, she is at 9, because she said it doesn't make sense that she is in this much pain at 0. So that was relieving. However, at 9 centimeters, I had no options to get any drug. I got nothing. I didn't get laughing gas. I asked them for everything and anything. Can I have Tylenol? Can I have anything? And they said, nope, you're going to meet your baby right away. And now getting back to what I was talking about, of your body takes over, is this urge to push. I was essentially in the wheelchair. They're going down to the room saying, we're going to be there in a minute. This is so exciting. What a wonderful time. And of course, you're not hearing any of that because you're just in so much pain. But I had this feeling in my body where it was like, I'm pushing, like I'm going to meet my baby right away. I am pushing. And I had no control. Like, I don't think I could have stopped that. I know I couldn't have stopped that. I had no urge to do it where I was consciously going, I'm going to push now. My body completely took over and I sat there like, I'm a passenger. I have never experienced this before in my life. And very interesting, very empowering feeling, very scary, out of body, just so many different things. So if you've ever experienced a vaginal birth without drugs, maybe you have a similar experience. It was wild and crazy and so exciting, but so scary at the same time. Now, getting to the positions. So your contractions are starting, they're taking over, and you have this urge to push. Now, there are certain positions that I educated myself on that can enable your body to push more effectively, but also to reduce your risk of tearing. And the reason I looked into this is because I remember learning through my nursing that when you are laying on your back with your legs open, of course, everyone can see exactly what's going on. The entire medical team and staff can look and monitor you very closely. However, it's not exactly the best way to birth. The best ways that I had read and educated on were being on a side lying position or basically on all fours. And so those are different positions that I went back and forth through trying. They worked wonderfully for me without having the epidural. I didn't have the shivers that you get afterwards, but I also felt everything. And that was very scary. However, it was also incredible how quick that feeling of pain, shock, all that kind of stuff goes away immediately when you have your baby. So I get to meet my beautiful baby girl. She is put on my chest and I forgot about it. It was just kind of like this feeling of, wow, I could do that again. I forgot all the previous hours of all of that pain and everything that I went through, and it like vanishes. It's crazy. And I guess that's maybe the maternal thing of how we keep going through this again, is you very, very quickly forget what just happened. So one thing that I didn't expect, and one thing that I actually did as a nurse, and I felt maybe like it was a bit of a karmic thing, because you have to check fundal height, and that's basically your uterus height, making sure that everything is coming down, that there is no hemorrhaging, bleeding going on. And as a nurse, you have to go in and you check in the postpartum unit and you are pushing on that uterus, and it's very painful. People would always kind of wince and, look at me like I was the worst thing ever. However, now I get it, because when the doctor did that to me immediately after, they're helping to push out everything. They're helping to make sure that all of the blood, every piece of placenta is out, and it hurts like you would not believe. It's like the most sensitive area that was just holding your beautiful baby is now empty, and it's getting pushed on from the outside. So something to be ready for. It's very quick. Again, you forget about it immediately after it happens, but I wasn't expecting it to hurt that bad. And I also didn't see him coming in to do that. So something to be aware of if you are going in for a vaginal birth. That's one thing, that after all of the pain, you get another little shot of pain before you're good for a little while. Now, to get into the aftermath. So I was feeling great. I remember handing off our little one to my husband. He was doing skin to skin. And I thought, I'm going to go and have a shower. And I was just so curious to see like what happened down there. What is the difference? What does this compare to my cesarean? And, I can't believe my body just did this and all this kind of stuff. Anyways, I jumped in the shower. I was looking around, and you can't really see much because you are so swollen and your body just went through so much. So if you are like me or you're very curious, give it a couple of days. Just give your body a break. It just went through a massive trauma. You're not really going to be able to see much anyways. Now with that swelling, the ice pads that they give you are incredible. If you don't have these available at your hospital, then when you get home, it's basically just taking a giant pad, soaking it in water, putting it in the freezer, and putting that in your Depends or whatever you're wearing after is such an amazing relief without having to use painkillers and things like that, of just soothing that whole area, because you just went through a lot. You birthed a baby. And it was something that I found was just like a wonderful therapeutic remedy. Now, like I just mentioned, adult diapers. So I had two different kinds, Adult Depends and the Freedom Mom version. I preferred the Freedom Mom version. It's basically a disposable underwear. So the Freedom Mom ones are more like a short, like a tight, are they called boxer briefs? The ones that are tight. So you will have your lochia for about 2 weeks, give or take, after. And basically that means your body is shrinking down that uterus. You're getting kind of back into the body that you had before. And there's going to be a lot of blood, and that is going to continue on. You don't want to have to really worry about it. I found the pads were just more of a nuisance. The disposable underwear were a lifesaver. I would recommend that to anyone that goes through a vaginal birth. Getting into being home. So doing the sitz bath is amazing, and it's amazing for essential reasons to fight infections, do things like that. You just had a lot of people down there. You just had a lot of trauma down there. It is amazingly healing to use salt with any kind of wound, any kind of anything with the body. So any kind of anything with certain things with the body. So putting a little bit of magnesium sulfate or salt right into your tub and then just sitting in that, I found really helped my body recover. It made me feel like I was doing something really good for my body. And like a mini spa, but also just really taking care of everything, making sure I'm not going to get an infection while my body is re-regulating all this kind of stuff. You're very sensitive down there. Things are starting to work again, if that makes sense. You're going to the bathroom again. If you do have a lot of swelling, if you have anything like that, you just want to make sure that the area is super clean. And you want to make sure that there's no risk for infection. You don't need all that when you're dealing with a brand new baby at home. So I would definitely recommend a sitz bath. And now to get into some of the scarier things. So starting off with the statistics with the World Health Organization, the stuff that I looked into for, what's the point of doing Kegels? What is the point of pelvic floor physio? Why do these things matter? Well, the World Health Organization said that 1/3 of women that have a vaginal birth experience pain in their hips and lower back pain. They experience urinary incontinence, anxiety, depression, perineal pain, painful intercourse, and all of these things lead to challenges postpartum and beyond, because this is a very delicate time, and then you're dealing with potential other negative changes in your body. Now, doing things like the sitz bath can help with infections, UTIs, that kind of thing. But doing the Kegels, going to the pelvic floor physio, helps to recover the other things. So like I just said, some scary things. Well, just like a cesarean birth, your muscles are going under a ton of strain. They're not getting cut in the same way, but they are going through some strain. Your nerves are not getting cut, but they are going through some strain. And things are going to feel a little bit different for a while. Now, I had a personal experience where I felt like I couldn't hold my pee. I felt like I had the urge to pee. And then before I made it there with my little adult diaper on, I was starting to pee. And that was terrifying to me because I thought I have no control, like I have no sensation. And that went on for a few weeks while I'm wearing these adult diapers, thank goodness. However, what I was reassured by pelvic floor physio and continuing to do Kegels and everything is that those muscles just went under a ton of strain. The nerves went under a ton of strain. Things come back. Don't feel like that immediate postpartum period is your forever, because that kind of sent me into like a freak out of, I'm never going to be able to run again. I'm never going to be able to do jump squats or burpees or like anything like that because I can't hold my pee. It was terrifying. And it went away. Now it's something that I look back on and it's like, oh yeah, that did scare me. And that's not my reality anymore, because continuing to do those Kegels, continuing to make sure that you're doing pelvic floor physio, continuing that you're doing exercises that are strengthening your pelvic floor, make everything better. It takes time. Your body just went through a shock. If you can relate to me, amazing. If not, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Again, don't worry about it. But it's something that I personally experienced that freaked me out, that now is not a thought. So if you're there, it does get better. Now, talking about Kegels, I do feel like they are essential before you have a baby and after. Like I mentioned in the last episode, The strain on your pelvic floor, it's not all happening the day you're giving birth. It's happening throughout that 9 months where your body is changing and stretching and growing. And you want to maintain that muscle strength. You want to make sure that you're continuing to be in touch with that changing body. And so Kegels beforehand are immensely powerful because you're staying in tune with your changing body. And then afterwards, you know what that felt like. So you are getting your body used to that feeling again, and then strengthening your pelvic floor and that entire area. Now, my mom told me about Kegels. She said every time I was sitting down in the nursing chair or I was making a cup of coffee, I'd stand there and I'd do 5, or, I'd always just sit down here and do 10, or if your kids are bathing, like she did them all the time, and she's never had issues. And this was before, knowing about a pelvic floor physio and knowing about a lot of these exercises. She said, all I was told about was Kegels. That's all I did. And I have no issues. So, from one mother and grandmother to another, that's a very helpful thing to do. I'd recommend them for anyone. They take a little bit of time. They cost no money, and they will immensely strengthen your confidence and your body in getting back to maybe that pre-pregnancy self, if that's your goal. Now, just talking about the Kegels, talking about the exercises, those things are needed to strengthen all of those small little muscles. And it takes a lot of time, just like, going to the gym. Those things are going to take months. It does all go back, but you do have to do the work. Unlike when you're building a baby, for those 9 months, I feel like you're kind of a passenger. You're sitting there, you're not thinking about the next stage of development and consciously ordering your body to do anything. You're just sitting there and this miracle is happening inside of you. Now, to do the Kegels, you have to sit there and consciously think about the work and consciously be in tune with your body and your breathing and all of that stuff. So, to mention quickly some pelvic floor physios, I didn't really understand the benefit, but after seeing one, just learning a little bit more about how things moved during my birth and then how to get them back was very powerful because it just gave me that insight. It gave me that education. I would recommend going to see a pelvic floor physio to anyone because they specialize in that area. They specialize in your learning after you've had a baby, and that builds your confidence, makes you feel better. I had no idea that exercises like the clamshell and Pilates and a lot of different hip-related exercises were very helpful to your pelvic floor. So things like that we went through. I found it immensely beneficial. I only went once, and I took everything from that, practiced it at home. I am super, super happy with my recovery. And if I can pass that word of wisdom on to you, I would say go and see one if you can, if you have that availability, and see what you think. The last thing I would like to say is that, I read a lot of articles because I had a cesarean birth before. So I read a lot of articles about how much is my body going to change? Am I going to feel like me afterwards when I'm looking around, when I'm feeling my body? Am I going to feel the same intimately? How much is actually going to change? And every article you read is like, nothing will be the same. Your body is going to change forever and blah, blah, blah. Like it's true, but it's said in a way that is a little misleading because yes, your body is never the same. But I would put this analogy out there for anyone that's reading that and maybe a little bit nervous, that it's like getting a cavity filled in your tooth. That tooth is never going to be the same. It now has a little hole drilled out of it. It's got a cavity filled, but you are still going to eat and enjoy food and never look at it, never notice it for the rest of your life. So yes, it's a little different because it went through a change, but it is not a perceptible difference. And this is saying not a perceptible difference for your pelvic floor and things like that. If you are doing the work like Kegels and you are doing pelvic floor physio and you are exercising, but that analogy, if that can help you, that yes, it will change, but it's not going to be something you will ever notice. So to close this off, that experience compared to my cesarean experience, I wouldn't say the vaginal birth is better or the cesarean birth is better. They were both miracles in their own way. They were both incredible experiences. They were both terrifying experiences, but they were both empowering. And it's unlike anything to go through that feeling where your body completely takes over. And your body is taking over, like I said, building a baby. But this is a noticeable one where you're out of control. Your body is taking over and helping you meet this new beautiful baby that you've built inside of you. So it is truly unlike anything. The reward, either way you have a baby, is just incredible. I hope that this episode and the last episode helped you to answer some questions, to maybe hear a little bit about someone else's experiences, to get rid of some fears. Maybe I added some fears. Hopefully I helped you with a little bit of information and helped you quell a little bit of that. And I wish you luck in whichever way that you're going. I wish you the best if you're having a vaginal birth, a cesarean birth, whatever way you're going to meet your baby. It is a wonderful experience, super exciting. Remember that you're amazing. It is a moment in life you will never, ever, ever, ever forget. And your life will never be the same after you've had your child. The experience will just be the memory. So I hope you have just the absolute best day today. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Thanks for joining me, you guys. Bye.